Operation Northwoods was a false flag operation proposal that originated within the United States government in 1962. The proposal called for Central Intelligence Agency or other intelligence operatives to commit stage acts of terrorism in U.S. cities and elsewhere in order to convince the American population to go to war with Cuba. One part of Operation Northwoods was to develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, and even in Washington. The main proposal was presented in a document entitled Justification for U.S. Military Intervention in Cuba, a top-secret collection of draft memoranda written by the Departments of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and authorized by Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman L.L. Lemnitzer. The document was presented by the Joint Chiefs of Staff to Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara on March 13th as a preliminary submission for planning purposes. The previously secret document was originally made public on November 18, 1997 by the John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Review Board, a U.S. federal agency overseeing the release of government records related to John F. Kennedy's assassination. A total of 1,521 pages of once secret military records covering 1962 to 1964 were declassified by the review board. The Operation Northwoods document was first published onto the internet by the National Security Archive on November 6, 1998, in a joint venture with CNN as part of CNN's 1998 Cold War television documentary series. In addition to Operation Northwoods, the U.S. Department of Defense had a number of similar proposals to be taken against the Cuban regime of Fidel Castro, such as Operation Mongoose. Other such memorandums outlined Operation Bingo, a plan to create an incident which has the appearance of an attack on the U.S. facilities in Cuba, and thus would provide an excuse for the use of U.S. military might to overthrow the current government of Cuba. There was also a plot to blame Castro if the 1962 Mercury manned space flights carrying John Glenn were to crash, saying the objective is to provide irrevocable proof that should the Mercury manned orbit flight fail, the fall would then lie with the communists. It continues, this is to be accomplished by manufacturing various pieces of evidence which would prove electronic interference on the part of the Cubans. The continuing attempts of false flag attacks by certain high-level individuals within the U.S. military and intelligence communities had already prompted President John F. Kennedy to attempt to control, if not completely prevent, these methods of fooling the public to support a war against a foreign country. These high-level individuals within the U.S. government were intent on proactive, aggressive, and violent action against several governments around the globe, like Cuba. After the Bay of Pigs invasion, Kennedy fired CIA Director Alan W. Dulles, Deputy Director Charles P. Cabell, and Deputy Director Richard Bissell. Kennedy expressed outrage to many of his associates concerning the CIA's growing influence on civilians and government inside America. His attempt to stop the CIA's extensive false flag operations was a direct expression of this concern. Kennedy personally rejected the Operation Northwoods proposal. Following presentation of the Northwoods plan, Kennedy removed L.L. Lemnitzer as chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, although he still went on to become Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in January of 1963. American Armed Forces leaders began to perceive Kennedy as going soft on Cuba, and the president became increasingly unpopular with the military, especially during Kennedy's disagreements with the service chiefs over the Cuban Missile Crisis. Personally, I think that this fact, and the facts that President Kennedy saw a need to phase out the privately owned bank known as the Federal Reserve and put the power to print money back into the hands of the U.S. government, were what ultimately led to his assassination in an era where he was frustrating the plans of some individuals within the U.S. government. On August 3, 2001, the National Assembly of People's Power of Cuba, the main legislative body of the Republic of Cuba, issued a statement referring to Operation Northwoods and Operation Mongoose, wherein it condemned such false flag attacks considered by the U.S. But I want to also look at the Northwoods documents and actually give the viewer the opportunity to view it for themselves on the TV screen. For those who are interested, the George Washington University has a PDF copy viewable on their website at this address. Let's take a look.